Rivian has revealed its Q1 numbers, and it's not as bad as I expected. Unfortunately, Rivian is predicting it won't sell that many cars for the rest of the year, nowhere near as many as I had personally hoped. As I've said before, guys, I think Rivian is a phenomenal electric car brand. If you buy one of their cars, I actually think that's a really good decision. So I'm a bit disappointed to see these numbers from Rivian, and I'm really hoping something changes. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Welcome to the new subscribers. Great to have you guys. Rivian has revised its 2025 delivery forecast, blaming a shifting global trade environment that has been heavily influenced by Donald Trump's second term as US president. Lucid is saying similar things, but let's just stick to Rivian here. During the announcement of Rivian's first quarter 2025 financial results, Rivian revealed an increase in gross profit, $206 million. But there's a bit of an asterisk on this. This marks the company's second consecutive quarter of profitability, sort of, a significant milestone for the American EV brand. But probably more importantly than that, it makes Rivian eligible for a $1 billion investment from the Volkswagen Group, part of a broader partnership between the two companies. In Europe, this has stirred up a lot of controversy because Volkswagen is saying we have to cut salaries, we have to cut workers, we're going to fire 35,000 people, we're closing down 2 factories. And people in Germany are saying, yeah, but you're investing $5 billion into Rivian and you need to cut us, you need to fire us. That's bullshit. But anyway, that's what I'm hearing in Germany. Rivian manufactured 14,611 vehicles in the first quarter, delivering 8,640. So a pretty big gap between cars produced and cars actually delivered. The company, though, is apparently getting closer to building or selling the R2 and is building validation prototypes while expanding its manufacturing facility in Normal, Illinois. The car maker has said that while all of its vehicles are manufactured in the US and most of its materials either come from the US or are USMCA compliant, the effects of tariffs involving trade regulations and other policy changes have forced it to revise its delivery forecast. Now, to be honest, the truth is that I think more than 50% of the parts going into Rivian's vehicles are not actually made in America. So the tariffs will affect Rivian if this continues. Rivian expects to deliver around 40,000 to 46,000 vehicles this year, down from an earlier projection of 46,000 to 51,000. This adjustment means a potential reduction of up to 5,000 vehicles, equating to a 10% drop at the higher end of the original forecast and a 13% decline at the lower end. However, Rivian says tariffs will add thousands of dollars to the cost of every vehicle. But the company does have a little bit of a trick. What it did is it stockpiled batteries. I believe it stockpiled them before these tariffs came into effect, which means they don't pay any tariffs on these batteries, which are not made in America. This stash is meant to serve as a buffer against pricing pressures from Trump's auto tariffs. Here's what Rivian actually said. This quarter, we hit our second consecutive gross profit and our highest gross profit to date at $206 million. We have continued to make significant progress on R2, including vehicle validation builds underway, and our Normal, Illinois manufacturing facility expansion is on track. However, Rivian actually did report a Q1 net loss. So they lost $541 million, which is actually a lot better than what they lost in the same period last year. First quarter of last year, they lost $1.45 billion. So even though technically they're saying they made a profit, if overall you still made a loss of $541 million, I get that's because of investments, but you still made a loss as a company. It does mean Rivian are going further into the red. The CEO said this: there's a lot of uncertainty. The challenge is consumers are more price sensitive than they typically have been and are looking for lower priced alternatives. Pricing, the Rivian R2. It's estimated that's going to be, Rivian are going to charge around $45,000 for the R2, and that price will be stuck to regardless of tariffs. Rivian CEO went on to say this: these factors are expected to impact our global supply chain, material costs, and access capital expenditures, and market dynamics. Basically, they're preparing investors for probably some not great news, is what I'd say, in over the successive quarters this year. Scaringe, though, did say that Rivian has enough battery inventory for its vehicle production until the end of the year and early into next year. And in addition to its R1 vehicles, Rivian does make commercial vans. For the 2026 R2 launch, Rivian will rely on imported batteries until its supplier, LG Energy Solutions, begins US production at an Arizona plant expected later next year. Now, one other positive piece of news, though, for Rivian is as part of its first quarter earnings report, Rivian said revenue rose by 3% compared with the year earlier period to $1.24 billion. But a 3% increase for a relatively small company from one year ago is not really a significant number, I'd say. Guys, I've got to admit, I'm kind of curious to know if Rivian have kind of pulled off some sort of reporting special tricks here in order to get the $1 billion investment from Volkswagen. I don't know. I mean, I'm just curious, and it probably didn't happen, but is anyone else curious about that? Rivian posted a gross profit of $206 million in the first quarter, compared with $527 million gross loss a year earlier. Is there a way that companies can potentially report things slightly differently in order to unlock special bonuses? I don't know. But anyway, who cares? If the Volkswagen Group is willing to give them $1 billion or $5 billion as they're planning on over the next few years, that's great. I want Rivian to stay around. And let's be honest, even though Rivian is struggling, at least they don't have $200 billion of debt like the Volkswagen Group do. So it's, maybe it's better than it looks. Better than it looks, considering the Volkswagen Group might help bring in some more funds, some more credibility. And let's be honest, Rivian, they're a cool car company. They make cool vehicles, and I really hope that they succeed. The CEO of Rivian, well, he thinks that China is ahead, especially ahead of America. And he actually went out and said why that is. Now, Rivian sales over the first quarter of this year have been pretty terrible, but hopefully they can bounce back because they've got some great product. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. It's great to have you with us. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. China is obviously dominating the global EV market using predominantly lithium iron phosphate batteries. Most Chinese cars are not made with nickel-based batteries, which is interesting. And the reason for that, well, one of the reasons for that is lithium iron phosphate batteries without nickel are cheaper. Unfortunately, they don't cause any damage as well.